Hey everyone, it's Mike Hamber at FlipNerd.com. Welcome back for another exciting expert interview show where I interview great guests from across the real estate investing industry to help you learn, hopefully inspire you, and teach you a few things. For today's show, I'm joined by Tom Olson. Tom Olson is based in the Chicagoland area, but invests in a number of states around that area. So he's a Midwestern real estate investor that has bought and sold well over 1,000 houses and is running a really high level operation in terms of units. He also owns a construction company that is very sizable and does quite a bit of business. But in terms of his wholesale deals, in fact, he posts a lot of them on FlipNerd.com, so you can even get in on the action, which we'll talk about maybe a little bit today. But Tom has historically been a really high volume wholesale operator and is moving more into the turnkey space because they're seeing that that's where the market is shifting, adding more kind of rental-ready properties into the real estate investing community. So we're going to kind of talk about that, talk about Tom's wholesale operation, and talk about why turnkey rentals make sense if you're looking to build up a rental portfolio and don't want to have to do as much of the work yourself. Before we get started with Tom today, though, let's take a moment to recognize our featured sponsors. RealtyMogul.com is an online marketplace for real estate investing, connecting borrowers and capital from accredited and institutional investors. Get a rehab loan fast and close in as little as 10 days with rates starting as low as 9%. For more information, call 888-296-1697. B2R Finance makes loans tailored specifically for rental investors. They can help you unlock equity from existing properties so you can get cash out to grow your rental portfolio. That's huge and opens up lots of opportunities previously not available to rental investors. Need a loan? Call 855-819-4412 or visit b2rfinance.com today. AceBusinessFunding.com can help you get up to $150,000 in revolving credit lines to fund your business with rates as low as 0% for the first 12 to 18 months. Use the funds for startup costs, marketing, inventory, or almost anything your business needs. If you can't get funding, you don't pay a dime. Get funds for your business today at AceBusinessFunding.com. We'd also like to thank Specialized IRA Services, National Real Estate Insurance Group, and VirtualStaffNow.com. Please note, the views and opinions expressed by the individuals in this program do not necessarily reflect those of FlipNerd.com or any of its partners, advertisers, or affiliates. Please consult professionals before making any investment or tax decisions, as real estate investing can be risky. Hey, Tom, welcome to the show.
How you doing, Mike?
Good to see you. Good to see you again. For those that don't know, we're in a mastermind group together and have a lot of common friends. And I know Tom really runs a very impressive business, and it wasn't always that way, though. I know you didn't start in this space. Maybe you could take a couple minutes, Tom, and tell us about yourself and kind of how you got into the space you're in now.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, my journey actually started when I was 12 years old. My eighth grade history teacher, I was sitting at lunch, and he pointed at me and he said, he pointed me to come over, and I came over to him and he's like, "Hey, how would you like to work on Friday or Saturday?" It was. And I was like, "Well, sure, all 12-year-old boys want to work. At least they used to. I'm not sure if they do now."
Yeah, not anymore. That'd probably be illegal for a teacher to ask you that now. Yeah.
But back then, I mean, I loved it. I've always been a person that, I still love to work today. Like I've said before, my wife gets mad at me for working late sometimes, but so he asked me to work on Saturday. I went, and it was a 12-hour day. My first day at work was a 12-hour day. And we started in construction, and I actually worked for him all through high school, all through summer. I remember going to basketball practice and working with him, probably illegal hours now, up until sometimes midnight at night. And all through high school, I went to a private school and paid my way through the private school because I wanted to stay there. My parents couldn't afford it at the time, so I've been in construction all the way from then, all the way up until about. I bought my first rental when I was 19 years old.
Oh, wow.
So I've always loved real estate, and I've always loved the passion of real estate. I feel like God's led me everywhere, every step of the way to be where I am today. And which is why, I love where I'm at. This is my dream job, being a real estate investor, being able to buy and sell real estate. Like you said, I own a construction company as well.
Yeah.
That started in 2003. I think I've owned that since about 2003.
And that's primarily a remodeling company, or do you do new build or anything like that, or
No, we
primarily?
don't. We don't do new builds, but we do a lot of rehabs for investors.
Okay.
Um, I mean, obviously, some of those are for ourselves, but we do a lot of rehabs for other people, even people in the group that we talked about. Lots of people buy from me, and I do a lot of their rehabs with the construction company.
Okay.
So that's kind of where I got started in. As far as rehabbing goes. And about 10 years ago, I actually started working with investors. And what I would do is and at the time, this was 2006 when construction really already started to go down. People didn't realize it, but construction had started going down 2000, way before the actual crash in
Right.
2008. So I was trying to find new work at the time. And so I actually started hooking up with investors, and I had no idea what I was doing at the time. But what I was
That's how we all
basically
started.
basically what I was doing is I was going and finding them deals, which now we would call that a bird dog or a wholesaler.
Yeah.
And I was finding them great deals, and I was doing a budget for them, and I was saying this is how much it would be. I would run their comps for them, and a lot of these guys were out of state investors already, so I already kind of had that under my belt. And I didn't realize I was doing what I was doing, but I was creating this platform for myself, or this whole idea for myself of what I'm doing now, of wholesaling and buying and fixing property. So
Yep.
so what I would do is I would find a house for them. I would send it to them. I would send them how much the rehab would be. We'd bid on the house. They'd get the house. I would do the rehab. I'd help them get it listed with a realtor. So I'd do all the work for them, and I didn't realize I was doing it for nothing. And basically, the only thing I got out of it was, guess what? I got to be the contractor. That was
Right.
that was my big thing that I got to do. So that's kind of how I got started. About 5 years ago, I hooked up with Wayne and with Foreclosures for Cash, which is now the company's name is Good Success, wholesaling houses, and we've wholesaled about 1,000 houses together, and so that's kind of where we got started, and it's been really good. I think this year we'll hit about 300 houses this year,
Oh, that's
wholesale.
awesome.
Within the last couple of years, we've also just noticed this real shift in turnkeys, and for us, buying houses, fixing them up for us, and renting them. We have a property manager that works in our office as well. We highly recommend.
Yeah.
And we've just seen that right now, since we're right outside Chicago and Illinois taxes are very high, Indiana is a great place to own turnkeys. And I'm sure that you've seen that too. Indianapolis is another pretty good market, but
Right.
I actually prefer my market over Indianapolis because the rents in Chicago are so high. And the reason why they're so high is because their property taxes are double where they are where we live.
Right. Yeah.
So you couple that with about the same rent. Somebody that will rent in Chicago for $1,300 might be $1,200 here, but still, I mean, I'm selling those same houses turnkey for $90,000, $100,000, and it's a very good market to do that with.
Yeah. So talk about, maybe you could kind of take a step back and talk about how, in terms of people that are listening, like how they can kind of learn from how things kind of have evolved in your kind of career, your businesses, and how to kind of be open to, not open, but just kind of aware of how things evolve. So you crammed all that in a really small space, but if we kind of break it down a little bit, like things kind of happened, the business cycle changed, and you had to evolve to kind of accept that. And we've actually talked about that a few times lately on the show with different guests, but I think that we're in a unique market right now. We're kind of probably at the top of, I don't know if we're at the top, but we're definitely higher up the curve than we were a couple of years back, right? To where it feels like there'll be another shift coming. I don't know if it's 6 months away or 3 years away, but I think I see a lot of investors now that haven't been through different cycles, and they are not, they don't have their ear to the ground to figure out, where do I pivot from here if I have to pivot? And maybe you could just kind of share some insights on, I don't know if you have this, like, well, I have a weekly meeting and I think to myself, what am I going to do next? Ever just kind of happens to you. But nonetheless, there are cycles, and not everybody kind of is prepared for change when it comes, and it always comes in this industry. So there's a question in there somewhere for you, Tom. I want to see if maybe you could kind of share some thoughts on how people could kind of plan for, changes in their, in the kind of in the macro environment, business cycles, to always be looking for opportunity, I guess.
Sure, and that's kind of a loaded question, but at the same time, there's
Yeah.
many different answers
Yeah. Yeah.
to many different questions I think that you asked there. The first thing I would say is, let me go back to Turnkey. I think if anybody's going to buy Turnkey, for me, what I prefer is the boring markets. I really prefer Midwest, Alabama, some places like that where you don't have these huge spikes. A lot of places that you're talking about right now, even Dallas, where you're located,
Yeah.
I do think Dallas is probably closer to its peak. We're not even back to 2008 levels yet.
Yeah.
So keep that in mind and understand. For me, I still think we got 2 more years of steady growth in my market. I do think obviously New York, California, around the outskirts, East Coast, West Coast, definitely have some. They may be slowly trending down even. But so as far as Turnkey, the reason why I like it so much is because owning rental properties in those boring markets where you don't really care if the property goes up in value or down in value, you're still making the same return on investment that you wanted to make initially. So that's the first thing. The second thing, as far as how do we make sure that we know what's going on next? Well, that answer to that is connecting with people just like yourself.
Right.
Probably the main reason why we're a part of Collective Genius and many other masterminds. This isn't the only one that we're a part of. But going to local RIAs or going to big events or just knowing what's out there, reading in the market, making sure that, you don't get caught sometime, with 2000, a lot of us got caught in 2008. I wasn't one of those people. I do know many people that did get caught really bad in 2008, not knowing what was going on.
Sure.
So I view those high level masterminds. We just looked at our budget we're doing for next year, and we're probably going to pay about $100,000 this year in traveling, masterminds, meeting type things that you talked about,
right?
Because we want to make sure that we don't get caught like that.
Yep.
We kind of view that as our trusted advisors, almost, and it also gives us ideas that we might not be looking at right now. You've always got to be open to change. I mean, without change, you're always going to be stuck. If you've never read the book "Who Moved My Cheese," it's super simple, easy book, but it really mentions all that.
Yeah, I think it's one of the nice things about we'll talk about a Turnkey, or let's say you talked about buying in more boring markets. I think kind of the underlying lesson there is buy properties that are cash flowing and don't worry about appreciation and some of those things, which if you get them, and you probably will over time, they're great. That's great. But just kind of count that as gravy. So don't buy assuming that you're going to have some massive appreciation. Just buy things that are kind of stable. And in markets like where you're at, a lot of markets in the Midwest or the Southeast, or even a lot of like smaller Texas markets, the rents haven't gone down. Rents have gone up, right? So it's like even if the value on a property, and this is how most markets were, just because the property value got cut by 20% doesn't mean the rent went down by 20%. The rent probably stayed the same, or maybe even went up.
Yep.
And so that's kind of what you're saying there, right?
Yeah, and actually, that's exactly what happened. I mean, we've got a market in our area, Maryville, Indiana, which the rents basically went up $200 a month when the market crashed because everybody was going from ownership to rental real fast. So the rental market is super strong, and I think that's a national thing still. I think the rental market's still a lot stronger than it was previous, pre-crash, and I think a lot of people are just choosing to rent. They don't want to go through that again.
Yeah.
But you're absolutely right. To me, I feel it's more of are you an investor or are you a trader? And I know being a wholesaler, the way I view myself in the market, I'm day trading houses.
Right.
That's what I do. I buy and I sell the same day, make a couple $1,000s and I move on. I make a funny joke about this, but I always say that I tell you the key to any business that you ever do for anything, it's summed up in 4 words. It's buy low, sell high. I mean, it sounds so stupid and silly, but really that's what we do. I mean, it's with time, it's with anything you do. But that's what we do in real estate. It's what day traders do. They're just buying lower than they're selling, whether they sell first or not, if they're shorting the market. But that's what we do as wholesalers. But as an investor, as a true investor, um, having that rental as a vehicle to create wealth, because you might get long-term appreciation, but also to have that constant, mailbox money every single month that comes into your account. You don't have to worry about maintenance if you have, property management in place. It's almost like it's like a very heavy dividend stock if you think of it in the
Right.
stock market. So it's something that I'm not really worried about the price of the stock or the price of the house, the value of the house. I'm more worried about, am I making sure this is a good investment long term?
Right. And you've moved more into the turnkey space because there's a need for people that want to buy properties that are kind of ready to go. I mean, not everybody wants to buy an as-is house and have to deal with fixing it up and finding a tenant themselves and all those things. And the beauty of folks that are that are listening that if their ultimate goal is to own a rental property, it doesn't mean that they have to do all the things along the supply chain to get it there. So it's kind of no different than, let's just kind of use Walmart. I mean, they don't. They wear a few hats in some areas, but they buy products from a wholesaler or a distributor that are marked up, and they know that those people are making money, and they just kind of handle the retail portion, and they don't really worry about, well, am I manufacturing my own toilet paper so I can kind of squeeze every ounce out of this? I just want to specialize on the rental part. And it could be because I'm a doctor or a lawyer or a professional. I have a job. I don't have time to do all that stuff. And so there's this general kind of movement of people that are tired of investing in the stock market and tired of investing in things that they can't trust, and that maybe saw like a big chunk of their retirement. Even in the past month or two, the market has taken a huge dip. I mean, we have some. I don't even like being invested in the market anymore. I like to have stuff in real estate, but unfortunately, we have some retirement accounts and stuff that are stuck in different things that just got hammered a couple months ago. And I saw that my wife was like, "We lost, this huge chunk in like 1 week," and I was like, "Oh my God!" Like, this market is kind of scary. Like I don't even know what I'm doing out there anymore, even though
Self-directed
historically.
IRAs.
What's that?
Self-directed IRAs.
Yeah. Well, there's sometimes, it's complicated, but my point is there's this general movement in rentals as an asset class, right? And so therefore there's more need for you to provide a turnkey solution to people that has a house that might be rental ready or close to it, may have a tenant in, yes or no, potentially. But I guess the lesson I want people to learn here is that if you're interested in buying rental properties, you don't necessarily have to do all the work. You can buy them that are kind of further along the supply chain and closer to rental ready than, buying them as a wholesale property as is and having to deal with, contractors and all this stuff along the way. Can you maybe elaborate on that a little bit?
No, absolutely. And I'll go back to the stock market because I think a lot of people get this all confused. They think if I buy a house, then all of a sudden now I have to be the one that gets a tenant. I'm the one that has to fix a toilet. I'm the one that has to do all this dirty work. But think about that. When you buy a stock in Walmart, are you the one hiring and firing, cleaning up the messes? Absolutely not. You have to think of it like an investment.
Yeah.
And the great thing about owning properties is there's so many more extra benefits that come along with it.
Sure.
But just like owning a stock, you don't have to do any of the work as long as you have good. And I'll be honest with you, the key to turnkey, I don't care where you buy turnkeys. The key to turnkey is making sure that the property manager is vetted.
Absolutely.
Nobody else, in my opinion, matters as much as that property manager. You make sure that property manager is an honest person, and there's nobody that can really mess up a good turnkey deal worse than the property manager.
Right.
But that property manager is like the manager of Walmart or the COO basically of
Right.
Walmart when you're buying a stock and when you buy a stock. So, and the other great thing about this is you can leverage your money. So right now financing rates are so cheap, and you can leverage 80% of that. So you can buy a $100,000 house for $20,000 of your own money. And so if you have $100,000 today, instead of buying $100,000 worth of stock or $100,000 worth of a property, you can basically buy $500,000 worth of a stock and leverage that to be able to make quicker, more gains, long-term appreciation, and all the benefits that go along with that.
Yep.
But But does that answer your question? I
Yeah,
mean,
yeah.
it's
So talk
definitely
a little bit about
sure.
one of the things that's kind of changed over, I think the past few years has been kind of significant in this regard, is people's comfort level, I guess, with buying properties that are not where they are. I think that there's been this, it was, it's obviously the rental market is a huge market. Something like 1 in 3 homes in America is owned by a real estate investor. And, but I think historically, a lot of people like them to be kind of close to where they are in case they need to get involved somehow. I'll tell you, just this week, for the first time in, gosh, probably a couple of years, all my rental properties are in the Dallas area. I never drive past them. And a couple days ago, literally 2 days ago, my wife said we were going somewhere, and she's like, "Oh, let's go drive past this house," because we were right by it. I was like, "No, no, no, I don't want to see it. I don't want to know. I don't want to know. I just don't want to know. We don't manage our own rentals. I don't want to know." And sure enough, we drove past it, and there's some peeling paint, and it's like, "Oh, they need to do this on the siding." And she's like, "We need to go drive past the other houses." Sometime we need to schedule like a week and go drive past all our houses. I was like, no way, because I don't want to know. So that realization that I have them in my market and I go out of my way to not drive past them kind of makes you understand that it doesn't really, if you don't want to drive past them, then it doesn't matter where you are relative to where they are, right?
Yeah, I mean, and I'm probably going to say something here that doesn't really, most people may not understand, but it makes sense to me. So
Yeah.
I couple that along the exact same ways of my company, my construction company. I basically run that construction company from 2 meetings a week, and that's it. I don't want to know anything that happens in that company that's bad news. Oh, we forgot to do this, or for some reason this got missed, or whatever. I have people in my company that handle that for me.
Right.
So that's the exact same way. I'm to the point for myself, I would rather not own locally and own somewhere else, even though I think my market's probably one of the best markets in the United States to own properties in, just because of that same thing.
Sure.
But what I've learned in my business, and I think it applies here as well, is if you have the right people in place, they're actually better at making you money than you are. It sounds stupid, and I know that there's a little bit of, people are like, well, if you want it done right, you have to do it yourself. And I know that there's a lot of that. Nobody's going to take care of your property as well as you can. But I just have seen that to be not the case, and I see myself make decisions because of emotions. That if I was making that same decision for somebody else, and I was trying to look out for their best interest, I wouldn't have made that decision. And it's lost me a lot of money over the years in my construction business, but I've learned that from my standpoint that other people are actually, if I have the right people in place, they're actually better at making you money than you are. And I think it's the exact same analogy here with a property manager. If you have the right property manager in place that really cares about his people and the people that he's managing for, then he will be way better at making you money than you are. And think about it. If their whole job is to rent houses, who's going to get that house rented when it's vacant? Is it going to be you, or is it going to be them?
Yeah, exactly.
And they're experts at it. And everything that you said is about leveraging other people, and not leveraging them in a bad way, but leveraging their expertise. This is the service they provide. This is what they want to do. I mean, my property manager's his goal is to have 1,000 doors. But to me, that just sounds like complete brain damage. I would never want to do that but that's what he likes to do. And this is what he's wanted to do. So I've had to learn over the years that, people actually like to do what you hate. And I think that's the best answer I can come up with.
Yeah. So talk about, and I don't know exactly what your model is, but there are different, when turnkey is a broad kind of term. Some people will say, well, I sell properties, they have a tenant in place, they have property management in place, and we've got it fully warranted, and they just can't go wrong. Then there's some people that are like, well, I have a property and it's ready to move into. I don't have a tenant in place or property management. So there's all different kind of levels. Maybe you can share your thoughts on. I'm not saying that any of those are right or wrong. They're just different flavors. And I want people that are listening saying that, wow, I like the idea of a rental ready property. Maybe you could share some thoughts on kind of a few different flavors that exist out there.
Sure, and we kind of do all of those.
Okay.
So we have not gotten as far as guaranteeing rents or guaranteeing maintenance, but we do guarantee any repairs that were done in the rehab. So we'll guarantee that for a year, and We've learned a little bit about exactly what to do. Obviously, we're looking for B or C neighborhoods. We're looking for, we don't want war zones. We don't want, that kind of stuff. But we're looking, we want to make sure the furnaces are good. We want to make sure that roofs are good, electrical systems, plumbing systems. We obviously want to give the renters a nice place to live. So normally there's new flooring, new countertops, new paint, all that kind of stuff
Sure.
is done. But so, I mean, that's basically what we're trying
and then
to.
you have, and just to clarify, you have kind of a partnership with a property manager that
Yes.
if you sell somebody a turnkey, you say here's who is managing it, or here's who we recommend in this area,
Yes.
where it's a little bit of a more of a kind of a done for you solution, right?
Absolutely. And then let me go back to your question because I kind of got lost there for a second. But so yes, there are times where we actually will sell a cash deal to somebody who wants to own it as a rental. And I'll tell them, hey, I can do this all for you. You're going to get this great cash price. And those are the people, honestly, they're going to get the best deal because they're buying cash.
Right.
They're willing to take on the risk of whatever the rehab is. Now, obviously, we'll have an estimate up front. And, it's a pretty good estimate, but I mean, you never know what's going to happen when you open up a wall. So they're going to take on that risk, and that's more risky, and that's fine. But I think but it could still be done for them.
Right.
I only recommend, and I only push, and I basically say you're going to manage this yourself, or you're going to find your own manager, or you're going to use my manager when I'm selling them. So I don't recommend anybody else. I only have this one person that I do recommend. I don't have any agreement with him. I don't make a penny off of him. He doesn't. I know a lot of guys that they charge 10, but they're actually only getting 8. Or we don't do any of that. The guy gets all the money. So I don't have any kind of relationship like that with him at all. But I do trust him. He goes to my church. He's a really good guy. I've known him for a long time, and he has a really good systems in place. So I do sell houses like that, and then. See, I mean, the whole thought is, well, yeah, let's get this property all the way to rented, managed, and then sell it. But the demand is just so high, and I get emails every single day. Hey, you got a new rental property? So then I just kind of get sucked in to letting them have it pre-rehab, pre-rented, or sometimes we just finished it, and we're like, okay, well, let's just start marketing it. But I mean, the whole goal is to get it rented, is to get it managed.
Sure.
So I guess, does that answer your question?
Yeah. I just want to talk about kind of the different scenarios in terms of turnkey. Like turnkey is like, how done is it?
Right.
And people might want different solutions, like you said. So maybe Tom, we've got just a few more minutes, or maybe you could kind of talk about, for people that are listening right now that say, wow, I like the idea of buying a turnkey rental or something that's kind of largely done for me. And they are not necessarily looking in your market in the kind of Chicagoland, Indiana, or Michigan area, and they're looking in other markets. What are some of the questions people that they're looking at to work with, to people that they're kind of talking to that they may work with? What are some of the things that they should, look out for, types of questions they should ask in terms of kind of a turnkey provider?
Yeah, I mean, I would definitely want to know what is it going to take for this house to be able to rent. Obviously, if it is rented, great. Then you kind of have all your numbers in place. But what are your numbers is probably the first thing. Yeah. What's guaranteed? But again, I'm going to go back to that property manager. In my opinion, that property manager is so much more important than all that. You can make a mistake with a rental and still make money.
Yeah.
That's totally opposite from a fix and flip. All of us people that have done fix and flips. You make a mistake in fix and flip almost every time, you're losing money.
Right.
But with a rental, I mean, you can weather that out. You might not make money for the first 6 months or for the first year, but eventually you'll make money with it. That's why I like the rentals, because I really feel like it's probably one of the least risky things, as long as it's a good house in a decent area with a good property manager.
Good management, right? Yeah.
So the questions I would ask would be to the property manager, and I can just give you my preference. I don't know that these are the only questions I would ask. But how long have they been in business? You don't want some newbie. Is definitely a question I would ask. And how many doors are they managing currently? In my experience, the best ones are between 100 and 400 doors.
Okay.
Now I know that I have come across some that with more doors that have good customer service, but it's just been my experience. Those people that are managing 1,000, 2,000 doors, they've got systems in place, but they're normally slower systems. And for me, thinking if I'm in California or I'm in Dallas and I want to rent a property in Alabama, per se, those are the questions that I want to ask. And do they have systems in place? I mean, the biggest question is turnover. So how quick can I get this place rented? Is it really a strong rental market or not? I mean,
Right.
there's areas in my subdivision, in my area, like South Hammond, for instance, in my area.
Uh-huh.
If you put a Craigslist post out that you're going to have an open house, you'll have 30 people there on Saturday.
Wow.
So
For a rental.
yeah, for a rental.
Wow.
So I mean, no, like really, how quick is it really going to take to turn over? Because that's where you lose the biggest bulk of your money.
Yeah.
Is when there's somebody not in the place that's not paying.
Right.
The other things I'd be concerned about is the county. How long does it take to get somebody out if they're not paying?
Oh, sure. Yeah.
There is definitely some places in some areas that are not landlord friendly. I think Indiana and Texas are probably the most friendly landlord states. 15 days and they're gone. But that's something else that I would definitely be concerned about.
Those are good. Those are great questions for people to ask for sure. Yeah. So Tom, if folks want to, I definitely appreciate you being with us today. For folks that want to learn more about you or your company, or they want to find out about, you do a lot of deals that you ultimately are selling on to other investors. Where can they, and they could obviously, they could find some of your deals on flipnerd.com as we talked about, but where else can they go to learn more about you and maybe be able to get in touch with you or your company?
Sure, absolutely. My construction company is olsonpropertyservices.com. So that's OLSON propertyservices.com. And, the goodsuccess.com is the website in order to find our properties.
Okay.
So yeah, it's www.goodsuccess.com would be where they could find it. And obviously, like you said, on FlipNerd, we've got almost all of our properties loaded on there,
awesome.
And many other sites as well, but not as good as FlipNerd.
Of course not. Of course not.
So, but yeah, if you need to get in touch with me, that's fine. If somebody would want to email me directly, I'm totally fine with that. It's tolson@goodsuccess.com. So T-Olson, O-L-S-O-N, @goodsuccess.com.
Awesome. Well, Tom, thanks again for your time today. Appreciate you, and I hope to see you soon.
Cool. Thanks, Mike.
Take care. Have a good day. Are you a member of flipnerd.com, the most robust real estate investing platform in existence, where you can find off-market wholesale deals and great vendors literally in your market? You can get access to advice from experts and learn about local clubs and events right in your backyard. If not, please visit flipnerd.com and register for a free account. You can register in less than a minute. It's pretty much the coolest site that's ever existed in the real estate investing industry, so get on over to flipnerd.com.